Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to Season 4 of ARBinBRIEF, the initiative designed to promote talented female arbitration practitioners from all over the globe. In this Season 4, we are starting with the exciting topic of leadership in the legal profession and what the future of the legal profession holds. And together with us are three brilliant speakers, brilliant leaders in our field, which do not need any introduction. But for the sake of good order, I have with me Sarah Vasani, partner and co-head of arbitration practice and CMS. I have also Sitpah Selvaratnam, independent arbitrator, as well as Nadia Darwazeh, partner and head of arbitration and 𝗔𝗥𝗕𝗙. Thank you so much for joining us today. And without any further ado, I would like to start our discussion with asking you something about your road, your path to leadership. Was this something that you planned for yourself strategically from the very beginning, maybe from law school or from your traineeship times, to reach the positions, the heights that you managed to reach? And maybe I see Sarah first on my screen, so maybe we will start with Sarah.
Sure. Well, Vera, first of all, thank you for getting us all together. It's been really fun to work with you on this, and thank you for your leadership and bringing us all on this platform today. I think that the answer is yes. I think it's safe to say that most people who are in the legal profession tend to be, I guess, what you'd call natural-born leaders and tend to want to excel and to achieve. So when I started my career quite some time ago, some decades ago, I think that path to leadership was more linear. And so it was quite common that you would go to a law firm and then you'd gradually go up, you'd become associate, senior associate, and partner. But certainly I anticipated that I would, be a partner one day. And then I thought, because I really loved international relations, that perhaps a, career in the law might lead to diplomacy or international relations, which is one of my passions. So never say never. There's still time yet, but yes, I did hope to be in a position of leadership when I started.
Thank you so much. And what about you, Sitpah?
Oh, mine is right the opposite. I didn't know what I was doing when I went into law school. And certainly when as a young lawyer, I never thought I would be today a full-time independent arbitrator. But for me, it's been like that, really. My journey has been such that the best things in my life just turned up from out of the blue. And I just needed to have the courage to seize the opportunity and without really knowing where it would take me. And so that's been my journey, Vera.
Thank you so much. I hope you will have a chance to explore the courage as part of leadership further today. And what about you, Nadia?
Yeah, I guess I knew from a very early age that I wanted to be a lawyer, which was a bit odd because I had no lawyers in my family. I think looking back, I think it was probably because I read a lot of John Grisham novels. So, and it was quite clear to me that, or I didn't necessarily say, oh, I'm going to be in leadership roles going forward, but I never put any limitations on myself. I'd really like to put it like that. So to me, it was clear, perhaps because I read those books, that, I was going to make if I was going to be a lawyer, I was going to make partner at a firm. And yeah, I had that very linear approach, I suppose, to my career. So I would say it was clear to me quite early on in my career that if I was going to choose this profession, that I'd want to go to the top, whatever that meant. I didn't necessarily know what that meant, but it sounded really good at the time.
Thank you so much. I see. Yeah, sure, Sarah.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that that I think leadership paths have become less linear over the last 2 decades, for sure. And so you see a lot of professionals, setting up their own boutiques or becoming entrepreneurs in law-adjacent fields like technology or personal coaching. So I do think that the path from big law has really expanded. So now we have a lot of different paths to leadership that are perhaps less linear than when I started practicing some time ago.
And Vera,
which is a good thing.
Yeah, and if I may add something to that as well, what I also think is really important to bear in mind, I think it's quite interesting not to have a linear career, and that if you decide to step out of the linear career, you can really add, it can be just a really amazing experience. Because while I started out on a linear career, I did take steps, side steps from time to time, including moving to different countries, and people would say, oh, that's not going to help you make partners sooner. And I thought, well, it doesn't matter. I just want to have an enriched life. I want to have, interesting experiences. And I think the result, what I am today is a result also of having taken different approaches than might have been the most logical at the time.
Yeah, that sounds encouraging, I'm sure, for our audience who are at different places and stages of their careers. So my next question would be about probably skills and the personality type and principles that leaders might need to develop. And I would like to start my question with the quote of Professor Lucas Mistelis, who recently said in one of his interviews to the channel My Arbitration, and I quote, "The most important qualities to succeed in this profession are patience and a bit of luck." What, in your view, are the most important ingredients to becoming successful in the legal field? And maybe we will start with Nadia this time.
Sure. Now, while I very much respect my partner, Lucas, and I think those are definitely two important ingredients, I would highlight three that, from my perspective, are really key. And I hope they don't necessarily overlap with those that Sarah and Sitpah are gonna mention. But since I go first, I have that, like, I can just say what I want to say. I think the first one that I would say, or let me just tell you what those three would be hard work. I know it doesn't sound very sexy, but it is what it is. Passion for what you do. And then the third would be ability to ask for what you want. Perhaps looking at the first one, hard work. I know, as I said, it's not very sexy, but hard work is fundamental. If you're going to have a career, certainly in international arbitration, international law, or, in a big law firm, there's no way around it. It's a demanding field and it requires a lot of effort and dedication. You have high expectations from the clients, high expectations from your team members, constant pressure to deliver results. And that means that success is not going to come easily. And there are really no shortcuts. And so if you want to be successful, then you have to be willing to put in the extra hour, go the extra mile, and stay committed even when you feel that the workload is overwhelming. And I think all of us probably here have felt that at times throughout our careers. But the hard work also builds your expertise. And it's that dedication of going above and beyond that not only builds the expertise and the technical skills that you need, but also your reputation as a professional. So that's the starting point of it all, I think, hard work. But it may sound a bit grim, but it isn't. Why? Because, and this brings me to my second point, is I think it's important when you're in this profession to be passionate about what you do, to really enjoy it, because that's what's going to get you through. And so when I look back at my life, I grew up in a very classical household. My mother was a housewife who, although I like the American term, a housemaker. I think that sounds, homemaker, it sounds much nicer. And my father went to work. I never felt with him, he had a good job, but I never felt like he was passionate about his job. So when I started out, I remember doing internships in law firms. I was like, wow, I'm just going to do this job, right? And then I remember meeting people in different industries, and they were working very hard and they were passionate about what they were doing. And I thought, oh my God, that, I need to find something that I can feel passionate about. And I did. I found international arbitration a little bit by coincidence. And so that's really important, I think, to find something that you're passionate about, because then you're going to enjoy what you're doing. And if you enjoy what you're doing, you're willing to put in the time, and you will be successful, because the lawyers who excel are those also who find meaning and satisfaction in their work. So what do I love? I love the intellectual challenge, working in a team, the satisfaction also of helping a client navigate a complex legal issue. And so when you enjoy what you do, the job is not just a job. It gives you meaning in life, and it becomes a source of personal fulfillment. And it's really the passion that fuels the perseverance that is necessary to move along in your career. So that's my second point. And then my third point, really, and I think this is particularly important for the women that are listening, because studies have shown that women ask less than men typically do, but it's equally important, of course, for men. It's probably the way we've been raised has been different, not asking, waiting for people to give things to us. But I would mention that it's really important to develop the ability to ask for what you want. So in the legal field, you must not only advocate for your clients, but also for yourself. So when it's time for taking on responsibility, more responsibility for doing a cross-examination, seeking mentorship, negotiating a promotion, asking for a salary raise, or even asking for a seat at the table, you have to find the courage to ask for that. And if you don't ask, you don't get. And that's what I always say to myself as I was going through my career. I was like, if I don't ask, I'm not going to get. What do I have to lose? Can I do this cross-examination? I'd like to do part of the opening statement. Yeah, sure. And that also gives the people the confidence that you're ready to do it. So waiting to be noticed or hoping someone else will recognize your effort is not enough. You need to actively go out and ask for that. And so I'd say those, from my perspective, are the three key ingredients for a successful career.
Okay, so passion, hard work, and asking for more responsibility and for more in general. What about you, Sitpah? Anything to add to this already impressive list?
You know, I am so glad that Nadia raised passion. So if I were to have to, and don't worry, I'm going to add 2 more to that list. But if I were to ascribe one real reason why I lasted for 33 years as counsel in disputes, whether in court or in arbitration, it was sheer passion. You know, I just get raged about a certain circumstances, and it's the passion to want to advocate a sort of justice for the situation that kept me going, kept me working at all hours. So totally resonate with whatever Nadia had said. But I would also say the quote is very apt. You do need a whole bundle of patience, because you can really feel fatigued. You can feel that you're not going anywhere. You hit a brick wall and maybe this is not for me. And you do need patience and luck. But I will come back to luck if you give me a chance later. That I think we do have the ability to help make our luck. But my 2 additional ingredients for success would be excellence. You know, we really have to strive to be excellent, and that's what the users want and entitled to. They just want the best quality, and there's no, as Nadia said, no shortcuts to it, including hard work, but also striving for great quality work. And I used to think that that would be enough. If I was very good, that would be it. I would just get on with life. And then I slowly learned that you also need to build goodwill. So my second would be goodwill. And goodwill is professional friendships. You don't have to compromise on standards. You don't have to create conflicts of relationships or interests, but just to get along with people all along your career helps you really. They remember you, they come back to you, and you work together well. And working in professional committees, professional bodies, I think is a very good place to have that. But if I just one word I might say about luck is this, that I believe, it's my view of the world, that we have the ability to co-create and attract what it is we desire. And it's in the state of our being, and it's the vibration that we hold and exude. And so just as happiness and a peaceful, calm demeanor, vibration is attractive as a mood, attractive for people, it's also attractive of opportunities. So the state of our being brings with it luck as well, and helps us in the way we excel and in the goodwill in the relationships we formulate, Véra.
Thank you so much, Sitpah. So we have passion, hard work, building goodwill, and also co-creating your own luck. Sarah, do you have something to add to this growing list?
Sure. Well, first of all, I agree with all of those qualities. I think they're all extremely important. And as I think we're seeing, there's a huge pot of soup, a cauldron, if you will, that we need of ingredients to make a successful lawyer. Just to go back to Lucas's quote on luck and patience, I do think there is something to that. And I'll just give you an antidote about that. I remember when I was a baby lawyer, had just started, practicing. And I remember there was this really very sexy Latin American international investment arbitration that had all the, salacious allegations of the telenovela. And I had studied Spanish, and this was going to be the perfect case. And I really wanted to work on that case. But instead of working on that case, I was assigned to this case, which was also an ICSID case, but it was a contract-based case. It wasn't a treaty-based case. And it was on the application of a tariff to a natural gas pipeline. Somewhat less interesting, I thought, and I thought, I really rather do the Latin American one. Well, it just goes to show, because that case, the salacious one, ended up settling quite quickly. Whereas at that time, I was staffed on this other ICSID case, and I was the only baby lawyer. It was leanly staffed with the senior associate and then the head of our arbitration practice. And about 6 months after starting that case, the senior associate ended up going in-house to a company. And the partner said, you know what, I think you're doing a great job. You can just run with this. So I ended up running this ICSID case with the senior partner in our arbitration practice, which ultimately led to me as a first-year baby lawyer writing all the pleadings, writing all the witness statements, meeting with the legal experts from the local jurisdictions. And ultimately, when it got to the hearing time, he said, you know what, do you want to do some of the oral advocacy? So as a first year, I was able to, first-year associate, I was able to do my first piece of advocacy before a panel of the late Justice Bergenthal, Folly Nariman, and John Beachy, which was an amazing experience. Was also able to travel to the Peace Palace for that hearing. And so, what might not seem like the case that you want or the perfect match with your skills initially ended up being one of the most fabulous experiences of my career. And based on that case, I then, I would mention that case ended up getting a jurisdictional decision in 24 hours after we argued it, which I think is probably a record history in ICSID. So then the good news of that case kind of got out within the firm, and then I became, really known for being the right hand of one of those partners, and it led to more great work. So even if the opportunity isn't exactly what you think you want, take every opportunity that you get and really make the most of it, because it really will have an impact if you just harness every opportunity and see where it goes. So that's what I would say about luck. In terms of patience, I think there is something to be said about patience, because a lot of associates come to me and they're so worried about, am I progressing as fast as the others in my class that have started? How soon can I make it to senior associate? And then once they're senior associate, how soon can I make it to partner? And, when will I get my first arbitral appointment? And there's this real angst and, anxiety about when things happen. And I remember one of my early mentors in my career, Arif Ali, he told me a Afghan saying, and he said, the poppy that grows the fastest gets chopped first. And that is just to say, do everything in time. Everything will come in time. Don't rush through life, just like you shouldn't rush through your career. If you had to ask me now when I got my first arbitral appointment or what year it was that I made partner, I don't even remember. And you won't remember when you get to my age either. So that is just to say that things will happen when they're meant to happen. And there's no reason to rush or to set standards or timelines that frankly you might not have any control over. And once we're in law firms and we see how these processes go, a lot of things are outside of the control of the individual candidate. It's not really about how good you are or the merit of your case. It's about a lot of business cases and the firm as a general and where they're growing. So that's just to say, be patient. It will all come in good time. You will end up where you're supposed to be. So just hold on and enjoy the ride, just like life. Enjoy your career, enjoy learning at every stage of your career, because it will all build upon the next and ultimately lead you where you want to be and where you're meant to be.
Thank you so much. I think all of us now have a perfect recipe of courage, patience, luck, co-creation of luck, building your own brand and goodwill. And my next question, I would like to ask something about different personality types. And I would like to start my question with a quote of the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. And this is a quote from her farewell speech in the New Zealand Parliament. Let's listen. "I thought that I would need to change dramatically to survive. I didn't. I leave this place as sensitive as I ever was, but I do hope that I have demonstrated that you can be anxious, sensitive, kind, and wear your heart on your sleeve. You can be a mother or not, a nerd, a crier, a hugger. You can be all of these things. And not only can you be here, you can lead, just like me." What is your opinion on this statement? Can anyone live in a law firm, spending a lifetime in any law firm, can conclude with such a statement? And maybe we will start with Sarah this time.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I 100% agree with Jacinda Ardern on this point. Being your authentic self is critical. For me, being an authentic leader really means, comporting yourself to a very high standard of integrity, taking responsibility for your actions and the team that that runs with you on your cases, and making decisions that are based on your principles rather than just short-term successes. It's really about using that inner compass that we all have in our gut to decide what our actions are going to be, and ensure that you then, are able to gain the trust of your associates, your team, your peers, and your clients. I really think that if you are authentic and you bring that type of a leadership style to the table, that it really leads to a better work environment and it really boosts your team's performance. It's also quite exhausting not to be authentic. I kind of don't know how people do it sometimes, because if you are the person that you always are, it comes naturally. And I really do believe that, clients and colleagues can sense who you are as a person, and they can also tell when you're not being authentic, when you're being fake. And there's just something that doesn't sit right with you when you have a conversation with someone and they don't appear to be giving you their honest appraisal or being truly who they are. They're pretending to be somebody they're not. I think, for me at least, I'd rather get where I'm going to get being me than get even further being not me. I want to live a life where I am true to myself. I'm true to my principles. I'm true to my values, and that will get me where I want to be on when the day of reckoning comes. So I do think it's important to be authentic and to really live your life true to yourself and true to your principles. And I think a lot of good things follow from that.
Thank you so much. Nadia, what is your stance on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the quote that you read was really, really interesting. And to me, when I thought about it, what is this quote really saying? And when she became prime minister, she was a very different leader from other leaders who've had to fit much more the mold. And she brought a lot more empathy to the table. She showed more emotion as a leader. She showed more fairness, perhaps. She was just quite a tremendous leader. And when I thought about the quote, is it transposable into the law firm? Perhaps not exactly. But to me, and in that sense, I would resonate what Sarah has said. It's about authentic leadership. Historically in law firms, a partner there was more of a cookie cutter approach to partners. You had to be dressed in a certain way, you had to behave in a certain way. And I think that is changing. It's changing also because of the diversity, certainly among the leadership, whether it is gender diversity or ethnic diversity, whatever it is, it's changing. And I think the important thing with that is there's not one form of leadership. There are different forms of leadership. And in order to be a good leader, you obviously need to work on yourself, but you need to be your authentic self. And so to me, this quote really is about being an authentic leader, being true to yourself, to the principles you have, to the values, and living them. And I think that for an organization, it's really important, because if you have different types of leaders, then, even within the organization, people have different role models that they can inspire to be, and different role models from whom they can learn, and in turn become authentic leaders themselves. So to me, I think it's an important quote because it reflects the fact that, to be a good leader, you need to be an authentic leader, and you don't have to fit any particular model. You can be your own model, and that's okay.
Thank you so much. And what about you, Sitpah? Do you agree that we can and we need to be our own models?
Yes, I thank you, Vera, for this question, because it's such an important question. Not too long ago, a young lawyer came up to me with a letter of resignation, and I asked why, because she was so good at what she did and was so committed. And she said, because I can't be you. And that's when I realized that sometimes we can put obstacles in the paths of other young ones coming along the way, thinking they have to fit into a certain model. And you're so right, what Nadia says, there's no one way, what Sarah says, there's no one way of doing it. Authenticity is key. I think we're all in agreement, more so now than ever before. We allowed that space to be authentic. And that is the only way to have a sustainable career. You can't last the marathon that the legal career demands, the profession demands of you, if you're not yourself. If I can't be me, I can't stay here for 30, 40 years. And it takes quite a number of years. It takes that long haul to actually get into a leadership role. So you have to be authentic. You have to be seen to be genuine and accountable, all that integrity that was spoken about to get there. But what I would just add is this. If you enjoy the legal profession, it does not matter what your personality is. The key is enjoyment. When you enjoy it, you will shine. And the other way of looking at it is find a part of the profession that you enjoy doing and then or fits into the personality. So you're fitting the part that you're doing to your personality. Then it comes easy and you enjoy it and you will shine, whether it's drafting, whether it's speaking, whether it's researching. You can find something that suits your personality and shine and be a leader in your own right. And if we know what our strengths are, and not all of us can do everything. We know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. And this takes a bit of reflection. And if we reflect upon it and we decide, all right, I know I'm not so good at that, but I've got all these other strengths, then criticisms that come on, to us are not taken so seriously, because we know that. We know that's not our major playing ground, but we've got other things that we bring to the team. And that's enough to be a leader, that confidence to lead. Vera.
Thank you so much. It sounds really encouraging for, I think, our audience. And if anyone ever felt that you don't fit or you need to be more assertive or to change yourself dramatically, probably you do not necessarily have to. I would like to move also to the second part of our discussion about the future of the legal profession and the leadership in this future. And my first question would be, what are the major challenges facing the legal profession today? And do you feel that these challenges and more broadly the demands on leaders are changing, and basically something which was not expected 20 years ago is expected from leaders now? And I would like to start to give the floor to Sitpah this time.
Thanks, Vera. Again, another great question. The short answer to the demands on the new age leader, yes, it's different. And if I would identify a leader in the legal profession, and if I can identify one a major challenge, I would say it's retaining talent within the legal profession. That's become quite a huge challenge. I think it's because it takes longer to see high-level results, and there seem to be many other greener pastures out there. So, and if I can then summarize and in that process maybe generalize some of the causes or source for that challenge is twofold. Again, very general in a sense. It's the changing landscape, the vast changing landscape in the legal profession, and also the profile of the young practitioners who are joining the profession. The landscape has changed because it's become so much bigger. So many people, crowded in many ways, very competitive in many ways. And so it's harder to find good training grounds and a spot to anchor yourself in. The converse is also true. If you're really, really very good, then the world's the oyster. And you keep hopping from one to another because you can choose just about where you want to go. And that's where retaining good talent becomes a problem. And the profile of the younger generation of practitioners, I would say they are certainly more diverse. And dare I say probably more affluent, but not elitist. And therefore, they are in a position to say, maybe I don't have to work. Maybe I can change jobs and I don't have to stay in one place for 20 years, as used to be the old model of getting the linear way to getting partnership. This is also a generation, I think, of practitioners who look more seriously into work-life balance, which is a very, very good thing. They're more attuned to emotional, mental health, and a wholesome well-being. And if I can put it a little crudely, the era of slash and burn, whether we're slashing and burning our environment or our bodies or our relationships, hopefully are gone. And the new generation are truly looking to integrate their career into their life without compromising on different aspects of life. Work and life is linked to be one. And these are all amazing things that the new generation is bringing into the profession. So what does it mean? That the leadership within the profession has to be ready to seize it and not expect a little part of them to be in every young professional that comes through the door. So it calls for leadership, I would say, Véra, to come from a space of compassion. Our leaders need to be wise. And if they have done enough work on themselves, they would actually have less chips on their shoulders, be less triggered by the younger generation. And hopefully they are able to work from a place not of fear, but of vision and inclusion and oneness. And yet produce outcome and produce results for the firm. And so it's a leader who is able to say, I am as hard as rock because I'm determined to get this boat going and really producing results. And yet it's soft as water to be able to guide and mentor the young ones who are trying to fit the puzzles of all the various pieces that are coming hard and fast to them. The AI, the technology, the data, they're just inundated and they don't know how to make this life work meaningfully for them. So it's a lot of this kind of leadership that we need, a leadership that can motivate and can bring back the meaning, ignite the purpose and the ideals of serving society, justice in society, bringing the purpose into the profession, which then makes the young practitioners see the wisdom of staying in the profession and belonging to part of the profession. Then we can retain our talent. We need the new kind of leaders for that. Véra.
Thank you so much, Sitpah. I think we rarely hear so many positive words about the new generation, which is usually criticized for just not wanting to work. So what about you, Sarah? What do you think about the challenges of today and tomorrow for leaders?
Well, I'm excited from hearing you speak, Sitpah, because you came to it with so much passion and excitement. I mean, I was going to say something very similar along the lines of I think a huge challenge is really we've shifted. There's been a paradigm shift. You know, when I was a baby lawyer, you'd get on that conveyor belt and there was really a lockstep path to partnership and the end of your career. And I think from the leadership perspective, it was more of an absenteeism leadership, where as long as that, you know, those senior partners had their numbers, they were cutting costs, they were doing what needed to do to make sure that, you know, the partners, the equity was growing and financially the firm was on a good track, that was enough. That was what was expected. That's not the case today. And if you want to first attract and then retain the best talent, you have to do a lot more. You have to invest in your people. You know, for me, it's one of my favorite, because I'm a people person. So naturally, I gravitate to being able to really develop younger associates, to watch them grow, to see their professional and their personal development. And I think right now you're seeing an environment in which, you know, it's not the case as it perhaps was in generations previously, where you'd stay at the same law firm for the entirety of your life. Now there's a lot more fluidity and a lot more movement. So in order to attract and then retain that talent, I think you really need to give them an investment. You need to invest in their professional development. That means giving them not only, you know, good packages, but also allowing them to grow as professionals, giving them opportunities to do their own advocacy if that's something that they're interested in, giving them more responsibilities when you see that they're ready for those, you know, really developing them as young lawyers, because if you do that, they'll be satisfied and they'll want to continue working with you. So I really think it's a mental, you know, a shift from just being a bit absent at the top to really getting engaged and investing in your team and your people. And that means not just, you know, investing in them professionally, but in them as people, knowing who their families are, knowing what their hobbies are, knowing what their interests are, having team meetings where there's a real sense of, these are my people, I've got my people's back and I'm going to go to bat for my people. And if you show that loyalty, and if you invest in your associates in that way, then they will, run through brick walls for you when it's needed. It's about this sense of trust and security and a mutual respect for both the professional and personal lives of the people that you work in, and building a team that's really cohesive and really, takes it to the next level, which I personally think is a wonderful thing. And I think there's a lot of really great things about the new generations that have made us rethink our own perspective. And I'm also in favor of bringing your dog to work. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think these things that make us happier at life are often really, not that difficult to implement, and certainly welcome changes to the more stodgier workforce of the past.
Thank you so much. I think it matches perfectly what Nadia mentioned about having the courage to ask for more. It shall also meet with the willingness of the leaders to give this chance to cross-examine or to do some bits of advocacy or whatever else. Nadia, what is your view on the challenges of today and tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I could be talking now about AI. We've all heard talk about AI, efficiency, all of that, but I don't really want to talk about that. I think we all understand that AI is changing the landscape, that we'll be doing different tasks as we go forward. But I'm also more of a people's person, so I would rather perhaps focus on two things. One is, I think, so one is the people that we work with, and the second is the clients, because I think the relationship there has probably changed as well, certainly since I started working. And so on the people skills, so to speak, I fully echo what Sitpah and Sarah have said. I think certainly when I started 25 years ago, it was, here's your case, you work, you bill $2,800 a year, and then it's great. And there was not a lot of attention being paid to my well-being, or what I cared about, or whose birthday was. It was pretty much irrelevant. I was getting paid a good salary, and I was working on interesting cases, and I was cross-examining like Sarah in my first year. It was all great. But I think now, so soft skills were not really expected at the time, or not necessary, but because I think there's been an evolution, and I also was very excited about Sitpah's passion. So I'm just gonna adopt whatever she said. The new generation being more balanced, I suppose I'd like to put it, more clear as to what they want. I think leaders in law firms have to change. They have to focus more on the soft skills. Some people are more natural at that, other at soft skills, and others are not. But I think that's really key, because if we want to keep talent, if we want to attract talent, we have to be much more involved in people's lives in our team, understand what motivates them, what demotivates them, pay more attention, have more of a bond, and ensure that they don't just grow as professionals, but also as people. And there's also, it's quite interesting. I mean, coming back to the internet, 20 years ago, it was quite hard to find out information about which firm is a nice firm to work with and which team is a nice. Now it's super easy. I mean, I know that all of our stagiaires, interns that come to us, they've got all the information accessible, and they say, we will come to 𝗥𝗕𝗙𝗘𝗙 because we know you have a really nice team, and we will not go to firm A or B because we hear that they're just not nice people. So that's also, I think, it's, if you want to attract talent and keep and retain talent, it's no longer good enough to just, unless people are just focused on money, just to pay money and to give good cases. But you need to also need to have a nice team. You need to pay attention, and that's what's going to get people to come and to hopefully stay. So I think that's the first part. A lot more soft skills are required, I would say, as leaders today in law firms. And then the second part, I think many of our clients have become more sophisticated, also as to what they want. They will not just accept, hourly rates non-stop. They will want you as partner, as leader, to think more out of the box, come up with more creative solutions. Some of them have quite sophisticated teams, and they like to be much more involved in the cases than, say, 25 years ago, where they're like, okay, here's the case, run with it, and let us know in 2-3 years what the outcome is. That doesn't fly anymore. But again, I think that's really interesting for us as leaders, because we're being much more challenged, and we have to think out of the box. We have to bring out those soft skills again, and having clients work with us on a day-to-day basis also makes us understand that business better, gives a different perspective on the case, and makes for a better result. So all in all, I would say it's all positive, and it's more interesting at leaders to be working perhaps today than maybe 25 years ago. But what do I know?
Hopefully we will meet in 20-25 years and everything will change for the better. I would like just to ask something also about another aspect of challenges of tomorrow. It's gender diversity. And I know that a lot of ink has been spelled on that, but I would like to narrow down this question. First of all, one of the challenges that women, though men also increasingly too, are facing is how to balance both parenting and career for those who want to have kids. What would be your view on that, maybe from your experience, if you're comfortable to talk about that? This is first part of the question. And the second one, what would be your advice on what each of us can practically do to enhance gender diversity? And I would like to give the floor to Sarah.
Well, thanks. It's a very important question. I'm, a working mother. I've got 3 children who are 14, 11, and 6. I remember when I first was thinking about having children, I knew I wanted children, but it was never quite the right time. And at that time, the office that I was working in at that time, there were no other working mothers in our group at all, really, in the office. And I remember a counsel taking me aside and telling me, you know what, I always wanted to have children. It was never the right time. Either I was in the lead up to partnership, or I was, it just wasn't perfectly timed with my work. She's like, don't let that stop you from advancing what you want in your personal life, both in relation to children, but also in relation to other things. And I took that to heart. And I was the first woman to get pregnant in our international arbitration group. And then, boy, the floodwaters opened, and then everybody was pregnant, and they said, what have you done? But long story short, I think it's important to prioritize what you want in your life. On your deathbed, and it's not a bad thing to think about, like, what will people say about me, about what I've accomplished, or what meaning my life has? And so much of that, for me at least, is going to be my relationship with my children. Yes, I love my job. I love international arbitration. It's a fantastic career, but I also love my kids, and I love my family, and I would not trade that for the world. So I do think there's kind of this, myth that you can have it all at all times. You can have it all, but not everything at all times. And so what I mean by that is that there are times where I will not take on another matter, because you know what, right now, I want to have a balanced life. You need to do everything that you have in front of you with excellence. So you never want to jeopardize the quality and the work that you are doing, but it might not mean saying no to some things. Not just work, but no to all the extra volunteer activities, or the other, non-billable activities that often law firms tend to go to women to handle. So you really need to think on what are your priorities. And then also, you don't have to do everything perfectly all the time. I don't bake homemade cakes. Actually, I don't cook at all. I'm really terrible at it. So I don't feel that my kids will miss out if they don't have a homemade, rainbow cake with 7 layers. I don't, go to every single, festival and decorate the halls. That's not my thing, but I am there when it matters. Like, my kids know that I'm there no matter what, when it counts. So pick and choose what's important to you. And then what I do with each of my children is I try to have what I call special time with each of them each day. And so it's not necessarily about the quantity of time, but it's about the quality of time. Time where I'm not looking at my work emails, I'm not looking at my iPhone. I'm, literally with them in that moment saying, hey, what do you want to do right now? And if it's my 6-year-old son, it is going through lists of football cards and ranking, this is a Tottenham player and this Liverpool player and who's better and who's left-footed and who's right-footed. It is whatever it is with that individual child, but it's those memories that they will remember. So it's really about carving out special time to be with your kids, to make that time count, and then to really focus on your work when you're working. And sometimes you'll need to lean into your work more. So if you have a hearing, there's just times where you will be away and you're in hearing mode and you're really going to be focusing on the work. And then there's times where your kids are going to need you more because they're going through their first heartbreak, or they've got a broken arm, or something at school happened, or they're doing exams. And then you're going to lean into your family more. And if you have that team, as we talked about, and you've invested in building a team that has each other's backs, that is going to be immensely helpful to you. Because, my team knows that if, I've got an issue with one child, then they're going to be right there picking up the slack and making sure that nothing, falls through the cracks. So it's really about managing it all, communicating with people about it, but also don't kill yourself. You don't have to be the perfect mom and the perfect lawyer at all times of the day. I guess that would be my advice.
Thank you so much. As someone who also can't make a 7-layer unicorn cake, it was especially relief to hear. What about you, Nadia? What is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I also have 3 children. Mine are a little bit older than Sarah. They're 20, 16, and 16, and I raised them pretty much by myself. So I'm mentioning that because I know that nowadays, it happens to more and more people, and I think it's important for people to know that you can be a single mom or a single dad and still have a great career and have a great relationship with your kids. And so I think, first of all, sort of balancing the career with a family life today, thankfully, is not just a woman's issue anymore. I'd like to think of it more as a family issue. And as society evolves, hopefully it will be becoming more and more of a family issue, because certainly while traditionally women always were very much at the forefront and had to shoulder most of the parenting responsibilities, I can see it certainly with my younger colleagues as well, the male colleagues. I think there's going to be a shift there, and I'm really delighted about that. So, but focusing on my advice for women navigating the challenge, and for men as well, as they will be more involved in the parenting as well, is really to embrace 2, I would say, key strategies. I think personally, I probably failed at one of them as I was going through my career, and I was quite good on the second one. I think the first one, and Sarah already alluded to that, is really set boundaries. I think that's really important, especially in the workplace, because it helps you protect your personal time and also avoid what we call nowadays burnout. And it's okay to say no from time to time, not all the time. And this is probably where I fail. I'm not sure I was very good at saying no throughout my career, as I was going from baby lawyer to grown-up lawyer. And I think nowadays it's probably easier to do. I mean, we don't have the same expectation that people are in the office 24/7. There's more remote working, there's more flexibility. Although I hasten to add that this idea, oh, it's great, she can work from home, that doesn't exactly work either when you have small kids and they're running around. But certainly there's a lot more flexibility there, and you need to be able to put boundaries. And even for us as leaders in a firm, I have the same challenge that Sarah has. Can you be on this board? Can you be on that board? Can you be involved in this? And I have to say, no. At times I say no, because you need to protect your personal space to some extent. And then the second part I would say is that you really need to build a good support system. That really is essential. Whether it's having a partner, and I remember reading Sheryl Sandberg's book, for those of you who haven't read it, Lean In, about 14 years ago, and it really opened my eyes. She said, the single most important decision you're going to make for your career is the partner you're going to choose. And I thought, oh, wow, that's a really important point that she's making. So have a good support system, whether it's a partner, whether it's the grandmas, the grandfathers, family members, or professional childcare. Make most of it. And having a support is not a sign of failure. It shouldn't be. You don't have to do it alone. And yeah, delegation really is not a sign of weakness. I think that's my sign. But what matters is that you're there it's interesting because we talk a lot about quality time, and I think quality time is important, but I also believe that being consistently there for your children is important. So I would always make a point of going home and having dinner with my children every evening, unless I was in a massive hearing and we were preparing for our closing statement the next day. But always being there, you know, it was quite burdensome because once I put them to bed, it meant that I had to get back on the computer and work. But it was important for me that my children knew that I would always be there for them, you know, in the evenings. We would have that family time together. And then, of course, the organizations themselves, and here I'm talking really from a law firm perspective, also have a vital role to play, whether it's about, you know, dealing with unconscious bias. Each of us has to deal with unconscious bias, things like, oh, she's come back from maternity leave. She probably doesn't want to travel. What do you know? Maybe she's glad to go and travel to the client. You know, maybe she wants to take up a new opportunity, or assuming that just making assumptions. We really need to deal as an organization, but also as individuals, with the unconscious bias that we have. Look for mentoring, offering mentoring and sponsorship opportunities. Yeah, those are some of the key takeaways, I would say. So as individuals, we need to think about this. And then also as organizations, we need to keep pushing to make sure that we are adapted in a way that women and men who want to combine family life and career are able to do so. So for example, that's my last point, and I'm not doing this as a marketing tool, but you know, at 𝗏𝗏𝗕𝗏 we recently introduced, for example, 6 months of parent leave. Whether you're a man or woman makes no difference. You get 6 months of parent leave. And I think that really makes a difference. That moves the dial.
Thank you so much. I think it will still serve as a marketing and you will now receive much more applications.
I hope
What
so.
about what about your view, Sitpah, on gender diversity and parenting?
Oh, wow. It was so lovely to hear both Sarah and Nadia, and everything that they say is absolutely spot on. So I have 3 as well. So 3 is obviously the magical number, but I've come out the other side of the tunnel. My eldest is 29 and my youngest is 21. Eldest is a lawyer. And so I think I would just add a little to what brilliant things have been said already. And I would just remind us that life's a journey. And we really have to embrace our choices. What choices, what experiences do we want in this journey? As Sarah said, at my deathbed. But before that, as I'm going along in this journey of life, what do I want to experience? And forget everything else for a moment when you're making that decision. Life is not a competition. Some people are struck by health issues. Some people are struck by grief, by losing family members, and others are not. So it's certainly not a competition. And once we make that decision, you know, clear of all other factors, do I want this relationship with another human being, whether it's a partner first and then children or not, as the case may be, then once you think you are going to do it, and this is my motto throughout my life with my 3 kids, my career, is if you want it bad enough, you will have the energy to do it all. And Sarah's absolutely right. Doing all doesn't mean all at the same time. You would apportion the right weightage at different points in time, but you can have it all. And what I would like to add is the leadership. I think it's time that they come to this landing place where they don't penalize women for choosing, or men for choosing to have families, and that actually their worth has grown by life skills, by going on to have children, have families, and taking time off to look after parents, all sorts of different things that make them wholesome people, that bring so much to the team at work. And if they did that, then really they would realize there's no one single career pathway. There are many different pathways. Certainly you may not make partnership at the same time as someone who did not take time off to have children or whatever else, but you're still on the pathway to getting whatever you want in your career. That's what I say. So if you want it bad enough, you will be able to do it all.
Can I just add one point, because I think this point is critical, and it goes to 𝗏𝗏𝗕𝗏𝗏, and I would echo CMS is a similar place where I remember first coming here and seeing there's a whole wall full of powerful women who have been very successful, and it's very supportive of female attorneys and working mothers. If you are at a place where it is not, you know, celebrated, where you feel that you could not be a working mom successfully, then you are at the wrong place. And I will just let you know that having been at different law firms, they are very, very different places. And there are places that are not very accommodating of women having children, and there are places that are very supportive. So you should really, first of all, look to your female counterparts. I've found so much mentoring and friends and strength by other women who have already been through the journey. And I have found the arbitration community in particular just full of amazing women who have, gone through this path before, who are always open to offering advice. But then I would say, if you're at a place that doesn't value that and then doesn't recognize that you can be both an excellent lawyer and really bring a lot to the table of your business, while at the same time being a great parent, then you're at the wrong firm. And so really, there are so many options out there these days. So if you are stuck in a place where you feel, you know what, it's just not possible to both be a mom and be a great lawyer, then I promise you're at the wrong firm. So, just think about that as well, because there's so many places that offer a great amount of, maternity coaching and when you come back, and just have an environment where they ensure that women who are coming back from mat leave do succeed and they thrive. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you so much. If someone needed a sign today, that maybe you got it from Sarah and from all of our brilliant speakers. In the remaining 4 or 5 minutes, and just to be clear, we will not be kicked out if we just take another 1-2 minutes. I would like to ask you about another aspect of diversity, namely cultural diversity. And what is your experience of working in or leading multicultural teams? Nadia.
Yeah, just perhaps sharing an experience when I used to practice in Frankfurt, and then I decided that I was a bit bored and I wanted to move to China. I had no link with China, but I'd been there as a tourist, and I thought, this is really interesting. I want to be part of this, right? Part of this dynamic. And so I started working in a law firm, an international law firm, but my team, I was a counsel at that time, and my team was mainland Chinese, right? And so it's a very different culture. And even though I'd grown up in different countries and, I'm bicultural, etc., it was a completely different culture. I was not, and so it was really interesting for me because in the beginning, I remember giving instructions to the more junior team members, and they came back and the information they gave me was very different from what I expected. And the way they thought was different from how I thought. And initially I was a bit arrogant. I was like, there must be something wrong with them. But then as I questioned myself, I was like, no, actually, we're just from very different cultures. And if you open your ears and open your eyes, you as a person will develop, right? And you will start appreciating, understanding this different culture and the input that, that is provided. And so it was a really interesting learning experience for me working in that environment because I grew a lot more. I saw different perspectives. And then when I moved from China to France, I think that's something that I really took on board. And I've always wanted to have work within multicultural teams because I think having different perspectives just makes the team so much stronger. And it's something as a leader where, sometimes there's language barriers, there's barriers in terms of how people take feedback, how people think, what kind of leadership do they like? Is it top down? Is it more inclusive? And so as a leader leading a multicultural team, you have to be, I think, really challenge yourself all the time to be open, to allow for open communication so that people can really strive. And it's if everyone feels that they're heard and that they can contribute and that they will not be judged because there's just one way of doing it, I think you come up with a much more interesting team and much more interesting work product. And so I think the challenge as a leader is to really create that environment where everyone feels that they're included, that they're being heard, and that they can express themselves freely without being judged.
Thank you so much. Frankfurt and Shanghai sounds indeed like a big change. What is your experience, Sitpah?
Right. So I come from a country which has many different cultures. I'm from Malaysia, so we have different cultural backgrounds. We are all Malaysians, but what I would say is, so I've lived it all my life, and then moved to UK, and then saw how that would be different when I was in the UK. And I would say just two things, perhaps. I would say, look, you can't assume the norms, your norms, are understood by everyone, because it is there's so much social conditioning that happens, and it happens through religion or culture or festivities, and their priorities may differ from yours, just from one culture, one religion to another. So you cannot assume timelines will be met, or working after hours. It can be assumed. You can't assume, full stop. And the second is, I think we have to be very, very conscious of our subconscious bias. I know that may sound contradictory, but you can be. You can just watch yourself forming prejudices because of previous experiences, and just catch yourself, because credibility of a person comes in different packages, and it doesn't have to sound a certain way to be credible. And everyone deserves respect. And so I suggest watch the subconscious bias that would tend to emerge in a multicultural setting.
Yeah, I think we are coming back to subconscious bias mentioned previously by Nadia, so it's a recurrent topic of importance. What about you, Sarah? What is your experience with multicultural teams?
Well, I will just say that that is one of the best things about my job. I absolutely love it. And it's what really attracted me to international arbitration, is this ability to work on a case, and every case is about a different sector. And you'll be talking with engineers in Brazil, followed by, lawyers in Bangladesh. And you get all of these wonderful mixes. And I think particularly with what we do, how we choose arbitrator, who's going to be deciding, having a multicultural team that brings, differences in geography and ethnicity and legal traditions is really critical to ensuring that our work is as good as it can be, because you'll get ideas from somebody from a different legal background or a different geographic background. So actually, that's not how it works. And this is how I would approach that problem. And these are my views. And having all of those different ideas being openly shared is something that will make our cases for our clients much stronger. So first of all, I think it's critical, especially in this area of international arbitration, to really value the input that having a multicultural, diverse team has on the output that we will ultimately provide. Just in terms of, dealing with a team that is multicultural, I think what people want is they really want to feel valued. And to feel valued, they need to feel understood. So I think it's really important to get to know your team, know where they come from, what is their background. I mean, obviously, you don't typically ask these questions in interviews. In fact, in many countries you can't. But once you've hired someone into your team, spend the time to get to know where they came from, what's their background, where did they grow up, what is their family like, are they do they not drink? If they don't drink, let's make sure that our social, because I remember when I came to England, it's very much, pub social. I'm not a big drinker myself. And if you come from certain countries, you're not big drinkers. And so I said, well, why don't we have like an afternoon tea time? Everybody likes cake, right? So, or you can shake it up so that people don't feel left out. It might not even be intentional, but the way in which, if you understand the person's culture, where they're coming from, what their values are, you can then make sure that you're doing things that are inclusive of the entire team, and you can ensure that you're structuring your team activities in a way that brings everybody on board, rather than makes them feel alienated or that they're not being invited because that's not something they're interested in. I think that's also true of working moms, right? Like a lot of times after work activities late into the evening don't work with people because they want to get home to their children. So I think it's really just taking the time to really know who your team is, understand them, and really make them part of your family. I mean, most of my teammates have come to my house and they've met my family. And I think that having that extra personal touch really makes us work better as a team unit. So I would just say, take the time to really understand your team and realize the benefits to your clients and your cases if you do have a multicultural team, because for me, it's only enriched every case that I've ever been on.
Thank you so much. And just to close our thought-provoking and fascinating discussion, I really enjoyed it. One final question. If you were to give one advice to the future leaders of tomorrow, what would it be? Sitpah.
Okay, I would say find your purpose and align yourself to your purpose. And the blueprint lies in finding out what you enjoy doing or what comes easy to you. That's a blueprint to what your purpose is on this earth.
Nadia? I think you are muted.
Mine would be quite a practical one. If you want to be the leader of the future and you're just starting out, already start behaving like a leader. And what I mean by that is, you have interns, you maybe have an assistant, deal with them the way you would like to be treated. Give them feedback on work they've done, start already managing, delegating at the level without having a big ego. I'm not saying you should have a big ego, but start treating people that are more junior than you in the way you would like to be treated. And that will in turn give you, you start developing your leadership skills. And as you grow, as you become more senior, you will have more experience and you'll be better at it.
And what would be your advice, Sarah?
Yeah, I was actually going to echo what Nadia said, and that is, be a leader of today. So there's really no such thing as a leader of tomorrow, because leadership's about character. It's about your personal attributes. It's about taking responsibility, and it's about showing initiative. And that's something that you can do at every single stage of your career. I also think it's really important to be kind to people, be kind to every person who is in the elevator, who is at the reception desk. If you're in a hearing room and there's boxes that need to be lifted or arranged, you do that. You lead by example. You lead by, showing that you are just part of the team and that, there's no different hierarchies, and you treat people as you would want to be treated. And so I think every single person on this call will find opportunities to be a leader right now in the current place in which they act. And that's really what you want to start doing. Once you start leading, and you can do that anytime, I look at my 14-year-old daughter, and she's a remarkable leader at her age. But it is true that wherever you are in your career, you can be a leader. So you should start right now.
Thank you so much to our brilliant guests. It was ARBinBRIEF with Sarah Vasani, Sitpah Selvaratnam, Nadia Darwazeh, and myself, Véra Bykova. Thank you so much, and see you in 2 weeks for our next episode of Season 4. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you,
nice
Vera.
Thank you,
Bye,
Vera.
everyone.
Bye.
It's lovely being with you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.